Welcome to my channel Echoes of Coin. Imagine holding a coin that has survived over 2 centuries. Struck when James Madison had just become president and America stood on the edge of war. The 1809 1-cent coin may look ordinary, but hidden in its worn copper lies a story of scarcity, flawed metal, and designs that collectors chase even today. Could this forgotten cent in your change box be worth far more than its face value? The story of the 1-cent coin from the year 1809 is deeply tied to the early days of the United States Mint, the challenges of coin production in the first decades of the 19th century, and the legacy of copper coinage in American history. In 1809, the United States was still a very young nation, barely 3 decades into its experiment of independence, self-governance, and the building of its financial institutions. The 1-cent coin of this period served as a vital part of everyday commerce, filling the role of small change in a society that was still largely agrarian and dependent on coinage for transactions at markets, taverns, and general stores. The 1809 cent belongs to the series known as the classic head large cents, a design that marked a transitional point in early American coinage. The 1-cent coin of 1809 was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time was the only minting facility in the United States. This was the era before branch mints were established, so every coin in circulation had its origin in Philadelphia. The mint itself was operating under challenging conditions, with limited technology, uneven quality control, and the constant problem of securing adequate supplies of copper for striking cents. The coinage of large cents had already experienced interruptions in the 1790s due to shortages of copper and difficulties in producing planchets of consistent quality. By 1809, however, production had resumed in a steadier pattern, and the cent remained one of the most heavily struck and widely used denominations. The design of the 1809 1-cent coin is attributed to John Reich, a German immigrant engraver who had been hired at the Mint in 1807 by Mint director Robert Patterson. Reich was tasked with redesigning much of the nation's coinage, which until then had featured the earlier draped bust designs by Robert Scott. The classic head cent, introduced in 1808, represented Reich's interpretation of liberty. On the obverse, Liberty is depicted. Facing left, her hair tied with a fillet or ribbon inscribed with the word Liberty. Her portrait is more neoclassical in style than the draped bust, with softer features and a restrained elegance that reflects Reich's European artistic background. Surrounding her portrait are 13 stars, symbolizing the original colonies, and the date 1809 is placed prominently at the bottom. On the reverse of the coin, the design is simple yet bold. A laurel wreath encircles the denomination 1 cent, with the words United States of America forming the outer legend. The wreath is tied with a ribbon at the bottom, and within its branches lies the core identity of the coin. At the very edge is a beaded border, typical of the style of the time. The reverse design, while plain compared to later coins, carried a dignity that was appreciated by early Americans, who were more concerned with utility than with decorative elements. The large cent was a coin meant for heavy circulation, not for ornamentation, and thus its design had to be both practical and easy to strike. The story of the 1975 1-cent coin begins with a much larger narrative in American numismatic history, a tale that stretches back to 1909 with the introduction of the Lincoln cent. By the time 1975 arrived, the Lincoln cent had already been in production for more than 6 decades, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. The coin was instantly recognizable to every American, not only as a medium of exchange but also as a cultural artifact, a tiny copper disc that carried with it national identity, history, and symbolism. To understand the 1975 issue in its proper context, one must look both backward to the origins of the Lincoln cent and forward to the changes that were looming in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The obverse of the 1975 1-cent coin continued to feature the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909. Brenner's portrait had been selected in honor of the centennial of Lincoln's birth, and it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure rather than a symbolic representation of liberty. This was a radical departure from earlier American coinage traditions, which had favored allegorical imagery over depictions of presidents or other famous individuals. By 1975, Lincoln's portrait had become so ingrained in the nation's coinage that it was unthinkable to imagine the 1-cent coin without it. Brenner's design had stood the test of time, with only minor modifications, and it remained a central feature of American currency. On the obverse of the 1975 cent, Lincoln faces to the right, his bust framed by the word Liberty on the left side of the coin. To the right of his portrait is the date 1975, and directly beneath the date, on many coins, appears the small initial of the designer, a discrete VDB. Above Lincoln's head runs the national motto "In God We Trust," a phrase that had been added to U.S. coins during the Civil War era and had become a defining feature of American money. The placement of these elements is both symmetrical and balanced, lending the coin an aura of simplicity and dignity. The reverse of the 1975 cent displayed the familiar Lincoln Memorial design, which had been introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat ears reverse. The memorial design, created by Frank Gasparo, marked the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. In this design, the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., is shown in great detail, with even the statue of Lincoln visible between the columns if examined under magnification. Above the memorial is the motto "E pluribus unum," meaning, out of many, one, a reminder of the unity of the states within the Union. Encircling the design are the words United States of America at the top and 1 cent at the bottom, making the denomination immediately clear. The decision to use the Lincoln Memorial rather than another symbolic or allegorical design reflected the mid-20th century shift in American coinage toward realism and direct representation. By 1975, the memorial reverse had been in use for 16 years, and Americans were thoroughly accustomed to it. The design linked the coin directly to the nation's capital and to the legacy of Lincoln, creating a symbolic bridge between the presidency, the seat of government, and the common coin of the people. From a technical standpoint, the 1975 1-cent coin was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark, following the long-standing practice of the mint. Those produced in Denver bore a small D mint mark beneath the date, while proof coins minted in San Francisco carried the S mint mark. These 3 varieties are critical for collectors, as each represents a different branch of the U.S. Mint and carries with it its own mintage figures, rarity considerations, and quality of strike. The Philadelphia Mint, the nation's oldest, produced the bulk of the circulating cents in 1975. Tens of millions of coins flowed from its presses, feeding the demands of commerce across the country. The Denver Mint, established in 1906 to take advantage of proximity to the western mining districts, also struck huge numbers of cents, and its output in 1975 added significantly to the supply. The San Francisco Mint, however, had by this time largely transitioned to proof coinage, producing coins of exceptional quality intended not for circulation but for collectors. These proof cents were struck multiple times under high pressure, creating sharp details and mirrored surfaces that distinguished them from regular business strikes. The composition of the 1975 1-cent coin was still the traditional bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This composition had been standard for most of the Lincoln cent's history, though it was destined to change within a decade due to rising copper prices. In the mid-1970s, however, copper was still economically viable for cent production, and the coins of 1975 retained their familiar reddish-brown appearance. For collectors today, this composition is important because bronze cents develop rich patinas over time, with colors ranging from bright red to deep chocolate brown. These color distinctions, labeled as red RD, red-brown RB, and brown BN by grading services, play a major role in determining the desirability and value of surviving 1975 cents. When examining the mintage figures of the 1975 cent, one sees the scale of modern coinage in sharp contrast to the early 19th century. Whereas the 1809 cent had been struck in the hundreds of thousands, the 1975 cent was produced in the billions. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck more than 5.4 billion 1-cent coins in 1975, while Denver added more than 4.5 billion. Together, these 2 facilities flooded the nation with nearly 10 billion cents. Such enormous production numbers ensured that the coin was common in everyday life and still plentiful today. Proof production at San Francisco, by contrast, totaled around 2.8 million coins, a tiny fraction of the overall mintage but significant within the context of collectible proofs. The enormous mintage of the 1975 cent means that it is one of the most common coins of the era, yet within that sea of production there exist varieties, errors, and condition rarities that make the issue fascinating to numismatists. Collectors often search for coins with double dies, repunched mint marks, or striking errors such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, or clipped planchets. Such pieces stand out dramatically against the backdrop of billions of normal coins and can command substantial premiums in the marketplace. Even minor varieties attract attention, as specialists seek to catalog every nuance of Lincoln cent production. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1975 cent lies in its position in numismatic history. It came just before the Bicentennial coinage of 1976, a celebrated event in which the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins were given special dual-dated 1776 to 1976 designs. The cent, however, was excluded from the Bicentennial redesign, meaning that the 1975 and 1976 cents retained the standard Lincoln Memorial design without alteration. For this reason, the 1975 cent can be viewed as a bridge between the pre-bicentennial issues and the coins of the bicentennial celebration. This continuity reflects the enduring stability of the Lincoln cent design even as other denominations underwent temporary transformations. Collectors who focus on building complete Lincoln cent sets must include the 1975 issue, and while it is readily available in circulation and inexpensive in lower grades, it offers challenges in higher levels of preservation. Finding a 1975 cent in pristine mint state with full original red color, sharp strike, and clean surfaces can be surprisingly difficult, despite the massive mintage. This is because most of the coins entered circulation immediately and were subjected to the rough handling of commerce. The vast majority of surviving examples display contact marks, loss of luster, or discoloration from use. Gems with blazing red color are far scarcer and command strong demand. The role of the grading services, such as the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, has been significant in shaping the market for 1975 cents. Coins that have been certified in grades such as MS65 red or higher become instantly attractive to registry set collectors, who compete for the finest examples of each date. Even a common cent like the 1975 can achieve notable value in these lofty grades, with prices rising sharply as the grade increases. Proof coins from San Francisco likewise become valuable when preserved without spotting or haze, achieving designations such as Proof 69 or Proof 70. In economic terms, the 1975 cent was minted during a turbulent decade for the United States. The mid-1970s saw high inflation, economic stagnation, and rising commodity prices, all of which affected the value of money and the costs of coinage. Copper prices in particular were beginning to climb, foreshadowing the composition change of 1982 when the mint switched from bronze to copper-plated zinc to save on expenses. In 1975, however, the cost of producing the cent still remained within tolerable limits, and the mint continued to churn out billions of coins without interruption. For the average American, the penny was still a useful coin, accepted everywhere, and essential for small transactions. From a historical perspective, the 1975 cent stands as a reminder of the enduring role of Lincoln's image in American life. By that time, Lincoln had been on the cent for 66 consecutive years, longer than any other figure on any U.S. coin. The choice to keep his portrait unchanged reflects both the reverence for his legacy and the stability of the design. Generations of Americans had grown up with Lincoln's image in their pockets, and the cent served as a daily reminder of his leadership during the Civil War and his enduring place in the nation's memory. For numismatists, the 1975 cent is also a case study in the paradox of abundance. With billions of examples struck, the coin is anything but rare, and yet within that abundance lie scarce conditions, elusive varieties, and the ever-fascinating world of error coins. The challenge is not in finding a 1975 cent, but in finding one of exceptional quality or with unique characteristics. This paradox keeps collectors engaged and ensures that even the most common issues can become objects of fascination. The 1-cent coin of 1976 stands at an interesting point in the history of United States coinage. For while America was celebrating its bicentennial with new coin designs on the quarter, half dollar, and dollar, the Lincoln cent remained unchanged, quietly maintaining its familiar portrait and Lincoln memorial reverse. In fact, among all the regular circulating denominations in 1976, only the 1 cent and the dime did not receive special bicentennial designs. This fact gives the 1976 cent a dual identity. It was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary because billions were struck and it appeared in the pockets of nearly every American, and extraordinary because it served as a symbol of continuity while the nation was busy commemorating 200 years of independence with elaborate festivities and redesigned coinage on larger denominations. The 1976 cent, therefore, provides a fascinating lens through which to view the intersection of tradition, economics, and national symbolism. The obverse of the 1976 cent, like every Lincoln cent since 1909, bore the portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. His profile faces right, capturing Lincoln in a dignified and thoughtful pose. The placement of liberty to the left of the portrait, the motto "I in God we trust above," and the date 1976 to the right created a balanced composition that Americans had by then known for over 6 decades. The obverse of the coin was so iconic that it was instantly recognized by anyone handling U.S. currency. By 1976, Lincoln's portrait had long since transcended its origins as a centennial tribute to his birth and had become a permanent feature of America's everyday life. The reverse of the 1976 cent displayed the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo and introduced in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1976, this design was 17 years old and fully integrated into the American visual landscape. At the top of the reverse is the legend United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum positioned just above the memorial. Below the structure is the denomination 1 cent. The memorial is detailed enough that with magnification one can see the statue of Lincoln seated inside, symbolizing not only the man himself but also the enduring respect for his leadership during the Civil War. The design tied the coin directly to the capital city of Washington, D.C., reinforcing themes of unity and democracy. The 1976 cent was struck at 3 U.S. mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia struck coins without a mint mark, as was standard practice at the time. Denver-produced cents carried the small d beneath the date, while San Francisco struck proof coins for collectors with the S mint mark. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced the overwhelming majority of cents for circulation, contributing billions of coins to meet the demand for commerce across the nation. The San Francisco proofs, on the other hand, were not intended for circulation but rather for numismatists and collectors who desired coins of the highest striking quality. The mintages of the 1976 cent reflect the massive scale of U.S. coinage in the modern era. At Philadelphia, production exceeded 4.6 billion coins, while Denver contributed more than 4.2 billion. Combined, these figures meant that nearly 9 billion 1976 cents entered circulation, making the issue one of the most common in U.S. history. The San Francisco Mint struck approximately 4 million proof cents, a much smaller but still significant number considering their limited audience. This enormous production ensured that the 1976 cent would remain plentiful for decades, and even today, they are easy to find in circulation or in bulk lots of copper cents. At the time, the cent was still struck from the traditional bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This composition gave the coins their distinctive reddish color when fresh from the mint and allowed them to develop a wide variety of patinas over time, ranging from brilliant red to mellow brown. For numismatists, these color distinctions are important. Coins are graded not only on their sharpness and lack of wear but also on the quality of their color. A 1976 cent that retains its full original red luster is significantly scarcer and more desirable than one that has toned to red-brown or brown. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC designate these color categories with the abbreviations RD, RB, and BN, and such distinctions often determine the market value of otherwise identical coins. The economic context of 1976 played a major role in the story of the cent. The mid-1970s were a period of economic uncertainty, marked by high inflation, rising commodity prices, and concerns about the cost of producing coins. Copper prices were beginning to climb, and the mint was already studying alternatives to the bronze composition of the cent. Although the switch to copper-plated zinc would not occur until 1982, the debates of the 1970s foreshadowed the eventual change. For this reason, the 1976 cent represents one of the last issues of the classic bronze era, making it historically important despite its commonness. It is a coin that embodies both tradition and transition. For the average American in 1976, the cent remained an essential coin for everyday transactions. The year was filled with celebrations of the nation's bicentennial, and coins played a central role in public awareness of the event. The quarter, half dollar, and dollar were redesigned with dual dates, 1776 to 1976, and special reverse motifs, and these coins quickly became cherished souvenirs. The cent, however, bore only the single date 1976 and retained its standard Lincoln Memorial reverse. Some Americans were disappointed that the cent had not been included in the bicentennial redesign, as it was the most widely used coin, but others appreciated the continuity and tradition it represented. The cent was seen as the bedrock of the nation's coinage, and its unchanged design reinforced the idea of Lincoln's enduring legacy. Numismatically, the 1976 cent offers collectors both abundance and challenge. In circulated grades, the coin is among the most common of all U.S. issues, available in enormous numbers and often worth little more than face value. In high grades, however, the story is different. The sheer volume of production and the rough handling of coins in commerce meant that relatively few 1976 cents survived in pristine condition with full red color and sharp strikes. As a result, certified examples in grades such as MS66 red or higher can command strong premiums. Registry set collectors, who compete to assemble the finest sets of Lincoln cents, eagerly pursue such top-quality examples. Proof coins from San Francisco represent a special category of the 1976 cent. These coins were struck with specially prepared dies and polished planchets, often multiple times, to achieve exceptional sharpness and mirror-like fields. The result is a coin of extraordinary beauty, with frosted devices contrasting against brilliant backgrounds. For collectors, proof cents offer a chance to appreciate the artistry of the design at its best. In 1976, the San Francisco proofs were issued as part of proof sets sold directly to collectors, and many have survived in pristine condition. As with business strikes, however, the highest graded proofs, particularly those graded proof 69 or proof 70, are scarce and command strong interest in the marketplace. Errors and varieties add another layer of fascination to the 1976 cent. As with other years, billions of coins struck by dozens of dies create opportunities for small variations and mistakes. Collectors have identified double dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, and other anomalies among 1976 cents. While most of these are minor curiosities, some are dramatic enough to attract significant attention and premiums. Error collecting has become an important specialty within numismatics, and the search for unusual 1976 cents continues to this day. The 1976 cent also has cultural significance as a product of its time. The bicentennial year was a moment of national reflection, pride, and celebration. The cent, unchanged amidst the redesigned denominations, symbolized continuity with the nation's past. It connected the everyday commerce of 1976 with the values of Lincoln and the stability of American institutions. For children collecting coins from pocket change during the bicentennial, the cent was often the first coin they encountered, sparking an interest in numismatics that for many would last a lifetime. The legacy of the 1976 cent continues today in the world of collecting. While it may never achieve the rarity or value of earlier Lincoln cents such as the 1909 SVDB or the 1914 D, it holds a secure place in the narrative of the series. For modern collectors, it represents both the commonality of everyday coinage and the deeper meaning embedded in even the most ordinary coins. The challenge of finding exceptional examples, the appeal of proof strikes, and the lure of varieties all ensure that the 1976 cent remains relevant in numismatic circles.